Hi everybody. I want to review this. What we looked at on Thursday was completing the square. Alright, so let's go over some of the things that we looked at, and then we're going to do two examples, two of which looks different than each other. So we're going to start with this first one. And I want to talk about some of the key things that I told you. The first being that our equation has to be in standard form. Alright, and standard form is your ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where your a, b, and c are all numbers. Alright, also for completing the square or for factoring, what we want is we want our a to be equal to 1. Okay, so you'll notice up here our a is equal to 1. So completing the square is not the easiest thing to do, and I understand that, but it is helpful to go through this process when factoring is not easily to come by. All right, and it helps us find the solution to a particular quadratic in this case. So let's look at the process and go through this. Okay, now we want, this is not easily factorable, so what we want to do is we want to focus on making a problem here that is factorable, and this is in our way. All right, so we're going to move it to the other side. Okay, we want to get rid of it on this side. In order to get rid of it on this side, we have to add it, okay, because opposites equal 0. But what we do to one side, we got to do to the other side. So let's work this out. We have p squared plus 14p minus 38 equals 0. So I want to get rid of the minus 38. In order to do that, I have to add the opposite. So I have a positive 38. What you do on one side, you got to do on the other side, because it's like a scale. So you got to keep them balanced. Okay. So now we have p squared plus 14p equals 38. And I left a blank there, and I'm putting a line because we got to figure out what goes into this spot in order to make this part factorable. All right, and if you remember, that's b divided by 2 quantity squared. Okay, and our b is right here. So in our problem, our b is a 14. So let's substitute that in. We have 14 divided by 2 quantity squared. So I'm going to have 14 divided by 2 is 7 quantity squared, and 7 squared is 49. All right, we have found what's going to go into here. So we're just going to substitute that value in. But remember, once we put that value on this side, in order to keep our scales balanced, our equations balanced, we got to do it on the other side as well. So we have p squared plus 14p plus 49 equals, we have a 38 here, so 38 plus 49. Alright, so let's simplify by combining like terms over here. I have p squared plus a 14p plus 49 equals, I need 16 plus one more is 17, carry my 1, 4 and 4 is 8, 87. Okay, let me move this up a little bit. So I have 87 there. Alright, now what we've done is made this easier to factor. So we're going to factor it into two binomials. p squared factored out is p times p. And we want to look at what can we multiply to get 49, but add to get 14. Okay, so that's what we're trying to find. So 49, we have 1 times 49, and negative 1 times negative 49. Sorry, my dog sees somebody. 7 times 7, and negative 7 times negative 7. And that's all that's coming to my brain right now. So this gives us 50, negative 50, 14, negative 14. All right, so what we want is the positive 14. That's what we want. So that means we're going to use this set here. So that becomes p plus 7 times p plus 7 equals 87. Now, these are the same, so that's the same thing as squaring, because if I had 5 times 5, I would write that as 5 squared. Okay, that's a side note, not part of the problem. So here I'm going to have p plus 7 quantity squared equals 87. Now to get rid of that quantity squared, I take the square root. So I'm going to have p plus 7 quantity squared. I got to take the square root. And remember, to keep our equations balanced, we have to do the same thing over here. 87. And a square root is a plus or a minus of the same thing. So we have p plus 7 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 87. Okay, now from this point I'm going to move up here because I'm out of space. From this point we're going to set up two equations. You're going to set up one to account for the positive and another one to account for the negative. Okay, so let's do that. P plus 7 equals the positive square root of 87, and p plus 7 equals the negative square root of 87. Okay, so I'm going to get my p by itself because that's what I'm solving for. So I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. P is going to equal negative 7 plus the square root of 87. Subtract 7 from both sides. Here, p is going to equal negative 7 minus the square root of 87. Alright, so get out your handy dandy calculator. In my world today, it's going to be my phone. Calculator. Alright, here we go. So I'm going to have a minus 7. I know you can't see that. I have a negative 7, close parentheses, plus the square root of 87, close parentheses, is going to give me 2 33/100. It's approximation because I did it in a rounding. Or, because it's an or, because I'm simplifying it, the positive or the negative. Let's clear that off. I'm going to have a negative 7, close parentheses, minus square root of 87. And I'm going to have a negative 16 33/100. Okay, so those are my two answers for that particular problem. Okay, It could be this one or this one, and a lot of it depends on the scenario that we're dealing with. Okay? So there's that one. I would say, do you have any questions, but you're not here to answer them. But there's the work that goes along with it. So you can go back, look at the video, and pause as you need to. Now, I do want to go over this one with you because you are going to have some work like this today, and I don't want you to panic. So first thing, what do we notice here? What is our form or our format? Okay, it's not standard form. I don't know why I feel the need to write that. You heard me, but we'll go with it. It's not standard form. So we're going to put it in standard form. So remember, standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Okay, so for the problem, 5k squared equals 60 minus 20k. Excuse me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get everything on the same side of the equal sign. Since my 5k squared is here, I'm going to go ahead and move everything else over. So this is a minus 20k, so I'm going to add 20k to both sides. Okay. A positive and a negative are opposite, so they'll go to 0. These are unlike terms. One has an exponent of 2 and the other one has an exponent of 1. So I now have 5k squared plus 20k equals 60. Now, what I'm going to do is, that's really as far as I need to get it, because we're actually going to go back to that step over here. Does everybody see that step here? You could put it in standard form and then and then do the 60 from both sides, but it's kind of like going forward a step and backwards a step. You don't really need it. Now the second thing we said was that our a needs to be equal to 1. Well, our a is 5 and it's not equal to 1. So I want it, or I need it to be equal to 1. So this k squared is being multiplied by 5, so I'm going to divide it by 5. Because 5 divided by 5 is 1, 1k squared. But if I divide this one by 5, I've got to divide everything by 5. Remember, we're trying to keep everything balanced. So 5 divided by 5 is 1k squared, plus 20 divided by 5 is 4k, equals 60 divided by 5, which is 12. Okay. So we now have it in the proper format. Okay, we have it in close enough to be in standard form. If you had done standard form, it would look like this. K squared plus 4k minus 12. Up here it would have been 5k squared plus 20k minus 60. I just didn't see the point in doing this and then going back to this, but it's totally up to you. So from here, remember, it's our, we got to change this, so it's b divided by 2 quantity squared. So our b is a 4, so 4 divided by 2 quantity squared. Well, 4 divided by 2 is 2. So 2 squared brings us back to 4. So we have k squared plus 4k plus this 4 that we just added in here, this one here, equals 12 plus 4. Because remember, we're keeping that equation balanced. So if I add it to one side, I got to add it to the other side. So we have k squared plus 4k plus 4 equals 16. Now let's factor it. This is going to be a k and a k. Now I know my 4's are going to be either 1 times 4, negative 1 times 4, 2 times 2, or negative 2 times negative 2. Okay, so when I add them together to get 4, this is the one I need. So that's k plus 2 equals 16. Quantity of k plus 2 squared equals 16. Now I'm going to take the square root of both sides. I have k plus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 16. Well, the square root of 16 is what? 4. 4 times, I had to think about it there. 4 times 4 is 16. So I have k plus 2 is equal to plus or minus 4. And that's where my two equations are going to come into account. Okay? We cover that up so we're not confusing ourselves. So here's our two equations. We're going to have k plus 2 equals 4, positive 4, or k plus 2 equals negative 4. K equals 2, or k equals negative 6. All right, so that's going to be your solutions to that. All right, now I know that's a lot, but the cool thing about being on video instead of being in class is you can go back, you can watch it, you can pause it, and you can go from there. Okay? I guess I'm sitting here waiting for someone to answer. Of course you can answer. Alright, so what you're going to do is from here on the next page is going to be a handout. Alright? And on your handout, what you're going to have is, I don't know, I think there's like 24 problems on there. Don't have a heart attack. Let's see, this is for September 18th. Okay. So what you're going to have is you're going to have 24 problems. And there's going to be directions, so you're okay. But the even of 2 through 24, so we're now down to, oh, you don't want to answer that. So we're now down to 12 problems. Okay? You're going to pick 4. That's all you're going to do. But one of them, I don't have my copy with me, one of them can be in standard form already. So, standard form. One of them has to be standard form, or could be standard form, but A is not equal to 1. One of them has to be like that last example where you have A squared equals, okay, it has to be in that format. So actually, let's just break this down to 3. Okay, instead of 4 problems. So you're going to pick one of each. I don't care which one, you're going to decide.